I love mushrooms. These Aussie mushrooms are full of flavour and you don't get any fresher than this. When you give them a squeeze, they shouldn't be spongy, they should be quite firm, and the gills should be super bright like this. Now, I don't peel my mushrooms because there's so much flavour in the skin. So what I'm going to do for this bourguignon is keep this super chunky. We want these mushrooms to substitute the meat, so big chunks just like that. Now, did you know the only difference between a field mushrooms, which these are, and button mushrooms is the length of time they've been cultivated. So these ones are much younger than the field mushrooms. The flavour profile is also different. Button mushrooms are subtler in flavour, whereas these ones are extra meaty. So I'm going to cut these in all different shapes. So the big ones in 4. Some of the button mushrooms, these cute little ones, I'll just take the tail off it and leave it whole. And the bigger ones will also cut in half. And I'm going to start with a good glug of oil, extra virgin olive oil, and then we can add the mushrooms. Now, don't overcrowd the pan. You don't want them to sweat. What we want here is maximum colour on the mushrooms. So I'll do this in batches. We'll start with one batch. We'll take them out and do the rest of these mushrooms. Oh, these mushrooms smell so good. They're good enough to eat as is, but they're going to be even better when they're cooked in a little red wine and a few other ingredients. So I'm just going to pop them to one side at the moment. And classically, when you make a bourguignon, you need the holy trinity, the mirepoix, which is a combination of onion, carrot and celery. So another glug of oil and in with our onions. You want to finely chop everything. I want to show off these mushrooms. So I want these vegetables to almost cook down into the sauce, but I want these mushrooms to stand out. So some celery. And at this stage, I like to add a little knob of butter, about 25 grams. This cooked down with the vegetables is just stunning, and butter and mushrooms, best mates. So we'll just start to sweat those vegetables. Again, another pinch of salt. While that's sweating off, 3 cloves of garlic, and I'm just going to very thinly slice them. All the flavours that you know go really well with mushroom are quite prominent in this. Butter, garlic, parsley later on too. So that can go in, and we can add some tomato paste. This is going to help it become quite thick and also a lovely rich flavour. So whenever you're using tomato paste, just cook it off just for a moment. And I always like to add some flour. Now, bourguignon is all about the red wine too, so I've got a good amount of red wine. I like to cook my red wine off first, so just pop it into a pot and reduce it by 1/3. By doing that, you're cooking off the alcohol and also reducing it slightly. So I'm going to turn the heat up and then in with the red wine. It smells so good when that hits the onions and the carrots. And once that just starts to come back up to the boil, we can add some stock. I'm using some veggie stock, and we'll pour that in. A bouquet garni, which is a combination of thyme, parsley and bay leaf. And then in with our delightful Aussie mushies. We'll just pop them in and then coat them in all that delicious sauce. Now, usually if you were cooking the classic beef bourguignon, you would put the lid on and it needs to cook for at least 2 to 2.5 hours, but not with mushrooms. This is only going to take 25 to 30 minutes. All right, mushroom bourguignon is ready to go. Look how thick and rich it is. It's glossy and those mushrooms have held their shape. You see, it really doesn't need that long at all to cook. Now, this is a totally optional garnish. Again, quite traditional. I have some pancetta here that I've just been cooking. It's rendered down so it's crispy, and this is going to give us that lovely crunch on top. I'm also going to add some onions. Now, these are pickled onions that you get from your supermarket. I've drained them and I'm going to add them to the pancetta, give that a toss, and we just want to warm them through. Okay, super easy garnish to go with it. All right, let's plate up. Mushroom bourguignon can be served with mashed potato, or I'm changing it up again by serving it with some risotto. I love risotto. It looks like rice, but it's pasta, and it goes really nicely with the red wine sauce and the mushrooms. So we'll add our mushroom bourguignon to one side, lots of mushies, lots of sauce. Great. And the little optional garnish, just grab a spoonful of those onions and the pancetta and just sprinkle them over the top. There you go. If you want to make this 100% vegetarian, just leave the pancetta out entirely. It's still absolutely delicious. We need a pop of colour here, and I love the freshness of parsley. So a fine chop should do it. And we'll sprinkle that over the top. There you go. If you're a huge lover of mushrooms like I am, you have to give this a go. Whether you're vegetarian or not, it doesn't matter. This is a delicious dish and a wonderful way to show off Aussie mushrooms with a bit of a French twist.